this is my turn now to talk about the area of expertise that I have. Let's say we apply what John showed us and taught us, what Holly did, what Carla did, many other things. We eat well and we live longer. It's important that we are able to keep the financing and to keep our finances healthy for the rest of our lives, which may be very long. I know it's a little weird to say in the middle of the crisis that life expectancies are likely to go very long, but I think it's quite the case. Life expectancies have been going up. People who are in this webinar already are likely, again, statistically, you may have some to live a longer life. In Berkeley, which is not that far from here in the Bay Area, right across that bridge over there, and another bridge actually, the Bay Bridge. At the university, they have a technology called CRISPR, C-R-I-S-P-R. It's an acronym which can actually change your genes. If they don't like what you have in your genetic code, which now they can read, they can already now in 2020 change your genes. And maybe in X years, X could be 2, 3, 5, it will be commercially available everywhere. And your doctor will say, okay, let's do a genetic test. This gene is dangerous, let's get rid of it. And you can. Just that alone could make your life longer, not to mention things like nano robotics and crazy stuff that goes on. Excuse me for the fuzzy fingers over there. But life expectancies could be long, and some people don't expect that they might live longer than they had thought, and it's good that the money was lost. I'll give you a background in a couple of sentences. I was born into a family of real estate developers. So as a child, I could see what owning houses did for my family. I'm a Silicon Valley guy. I came to Silicon Valley to go to Stanford. I taught at Stanford. Then I got my first job at Hewlett-Packard Labs right there in Palo Alto, near the university. I was a young engineer getting paid very well, the Silicon Valley kind of pay. And I looked at my colleagues who were older, maybe in their 50s, even 60s, and said, well, let's see, after working here for 30 years and getting paid so well, what do they have to show? What do they look like? And it was not impressive. Typically, they owned their own home and they had a 401k, not even a huge one. I said, not going to be the case with me. Because of my family background, I said, I'm going to start buying rental homes right here in the Bay Area, near where I live. And I did. I bought a couple of homes. Then I discovered something. You can hear that I speak with an accent. So when you come from another country, sometimes you can see things that the local people can't see as well. I was shocked when I was getting the loan for the first rental homes I bought, that in this country, and to the best of my knowledge, it's only in this country, you can get a loan called a 30-year fixed rate loan. Of course, you know it. Everybody knows it. But most people don't think about it. In most other countries, that does not exist. You get loans that keep up with the cost of living. They keep up with inflation. And yet here in the US, we get a loan where neither the monthly payment nor the mortgage balance will ever change with anything, not with inflation, not with anything. So when I talk in other countries, they think I'm wrong. They said, no, it can't be. You must be wrong. Because you have inflation in the US. 30 years ago, a postage stamp cost 4 cents. Now it's 50 something cents. 30 years ago, you went to the movies in San Francisco for $2. Now it's closer to $14 when you're allowed to go to the movies, that is. And so you have inflation. You want to tell us that out of everything in the United States goes up all the time with the cost of living. You need more dollars to buy it, except for one thing, the entire US economy, and that's your loan, which is going to be fixed for 30 years. If that were true, inflation would be your best friend. It'll make you rich by making your loan smaller all the time. The number of dollars is going to be the same, but you're going to need more dollars to buy everything else. You'll go to the movies for $14 instead of $2, and your loan is still going to be the same. So that means your loan is going to be eroded and become smaller by inflation. Inflation is your best friend. And on top of it, if the home is rented, you're not even going to be paying the mortgage payments. It's the tenant. And actually, more is going to be left for you. And more as the years go by, because the payment never changes, but the rents do. So I said, this is really too good to be true. Is it really the case? And it was. So I said, I just have to buy as many homes, get as many of these loans as I possibly can. I started buying, discovered it wasn't that beneficial to buy close to where I was living, because in Silicon Valley, the prices were always high relative to the rents. And so I went to another place. I started in Las Vegas. I flew there every weekend. I bought homes that were much cheaper and rented for relatively much higher rent, learned how to develop a team local in the field, property managers, brokers who find me properties, and all the universe that lives around them. I needed the property managers because I was living in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, but I was buying homes in Vegas. And over the years, I helped many of my friends who said, wow, we would really like to do it, but we are so busy because we are in Silicon Valley, we barely have time to go to the bathroom. And can we use your managers and the brokers who are? I said, of course you can. So that's what we do. And that's what we've been doing now for 35 years. I created an infrastructure in many big cities in the US where we have property managers who manage my own properties and my friends' properties and your properties. And of course, in some of these markets, we bought more than 1,000 homes. So clearly the service providers really care about us, which means they really care about you. Even if you buy just one little home, you say, wow, I'm such a small investor. But no, they know if you're not happy, I will hear about it, my staff will hear about it, and we could replace the manager and then we lose 1,000 homes. That'll be devastating. Over the past 35 years, many thousands of homes were bought by people not only in Silicon Valley, people all over the US and the world. We have investors who live across the ocean who own rental homes, and some of them have never even been to the US. So, I mean, in your case, it's much easier. I even recommend when we can travel to go and visit one time to see what it looks like. But now you can look with the satellites and all of that. Now, where do we buy these homes? So I've been a student of the demographics in the US for decades now. And it's very clear to see, and you can check it out on the census, which now we are compiling the census for 2020. The biggest demographic movement and growth in the United States is into the Sun Belt states. Those are the states like Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, Florida, where the sun shines. As an extra bonus, the Sun Belt states happen to be very pro-business and very landlord-friendly, unlike, for example, the state of California or New York, which are not. And that's criteria number one, Sun Belt states. Criteria number two, large metropolitan areas. Well, that's an obvious thing. It's self-explanatory. In a large metropolitan area, you have economic diversity, you have industry diversity. It's a healthy thing to have. And then the next criteria is where the numbers work. So Phoenix, Arizona, the metropolitan area in Phoenix, over more than 20 years is the biggest market for us ever. We bought more than 3,000 homes in Phoenix over more than 20 years. But as of April 2020, Phoenix is not an appropriate market because the prices went up about 160% from 2012 to 2020, while at the same time, rents went up only about 20%. So the prices are too high relative to the rents, the cash flow won't work. Same is true for Vegas now, for Dallas, for Austin, Houston, Nashville, but there are markets that do work. Right now, we're buying a lot in Oklahoma City, where it's not very far from Dallas if you look at the map on a US scale. And there, the prices are much lower than Dallas. The rents are just a bit lower. The property taxes are two and a half times lower than in Dallas. They have the lowest unemployment in the US, and the prices of homes that we buy there, brand new in good areas, run anywhere between 150 to about 190 something thousand. That's for the entire house. Now, Fannie Mae allows you as an investor to get these magical loans, the 30-year fixed rate loan, putting a minimum of 15% down, 1.5, with private mortgage insurance or PMI. If you don't want private mortgage insurance, then the minimum is 20% down. So if you buy a home for $160,000, 20% of that is $32,000 plus closing costs and the loan cost, close to $40,000. So relatively affordable. The rents are quite good. That $160,000 home is likely to rent for about $1,300 a month. So I know it sounds crazy. What? Houses? What is this? But remember, these loans, you don't have to wait for 30 years. We have people here on this webinar that say, oh my God, I'm too old, 30 years. You don't have to wait for 30 years. After 10, 12, 14, 16, your loan looks like a joke because it never keeps up with inflation, but everything else does. So typically after 14 years, it completely changes your life. On the show, Life 201, I tell the story. I think I told the story of my doctor friend here from the East Bay in California. I bought in Phoenix when we were buying there, the beginning of the 2000s. He was in his late 40s, I think. He was buying homes. He bought one just to see how it works. He bought another one. I think at the time we were buying them for about $120,000, and Fannie Mae allowed you to put only 10% down, which he did. So he bought one, he bought two. He saw that it works very well. He didn't have to put a lot of time into it because the managers were doing all the work. So he ended up buying 19. He calls me up 2 years ago. He's now 60. So 2 years ago, he was 58. I think I still remember that kind of math. And he tells me, okay, my 19 homes in Phoenix, they kind of look like this. A typical home has 14 years left on the loan. The home is worth about $300,000, and the loan balance is about $48,000. See what happens with inflation? The loan still has 14 years to go. It's just about midway of the 30. But compared to 300, the loan is only about 15% of the value of the house. It's tons of equity. I told him, look, you're only 58, you're a doctor, just leave it, you earn well. He said, no. He sold 3 of his homes, paid his taxes from the proceeds. He paid off the 16 little tiny loans. And now he says, you know, with 16 free and clear homes in Phoenix, I don't have to work. I know I'm a doctor. Sorry, not working. Just before the shelter at home, he was in Bali with his girlfriend. You know, he got back in the nick of time. But that's just an example. Or again, an example I think I gave on the show. The person who's now 82 started at age 60 and said, I used to be a high school teacher. I made so little, I didn't think I could ever retire with the 6 homes that I bought. Now I retired in my 70s. He's now 82 and retired very well, changed his life. But even one such home can make a huge difference in your future. Now, every quarter, my company holds a big event in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, near the airport. We fly in the market teams, the managers, the brokers. I bring in experts to speak about stuff that is important for us. I teach a lot, I take a lot of questions. And those events are live events in person. Our last event was a couple of months ago, while we still could do it. Needless to say, our next event is going to be virtual. It's going to be a webinar just like this. It's on May the 16th. Everyone who wants to join us is welcome. All you need to do is send an email to us at info@icgre.com. Or you can even register on the website, icgre.com, events. You don't have to pay. It's not a paid event. You can bring guests. You can invite guests. I think you can find it may change your life. So I know it sounds like a groundbreaking thing to say for people who are interested in health and wellness, but having financial wellness and peace of mind is a huge stress reducer in life, which has a direct correlation to health and wellness as well. I personally love helping people, especially beginners at any age. I'll be delighted to talk to you personally. Again, send us an email at info@icgre.com. I'll talk to you. I'll hold you personally, not one of my staff. Why do I do that? Shouldn't I be retired by now? Could be, not interested. I was introduced to the great Warren Buffett in 2012. This year is going to be 90, and he's one of the richest people in the world. Not retired. Why? Got to do something. Love it. I feel like I'm changing lives. So I'll be very happy and honored to talk to you. Now, let me talk about all of this in light of the coronavirus crisis. So it seems like, wow, is that the time to buy? Well, let's look quite objectively. So first of all, I recorded videos throughout the crisis. The last video I recorded was today before our webinar. You can find those videos on our website, icgre.com. And there's the blog, icgre.com/blog. You can find those videos, but let me summarize a few of the things. We have a crisis. It's a major crisis. The economy is suffering a great deal. A lot of people have become unemployed. A lot of businesses are closed, like restaurants, hotel. Nobody's flying pretty much. Tough, very, very tough. However, the first step that happened, I don't know if you recall, the Fed lowered the rates, the interest rates, close to zero. So the mortgage rates are now, by the way, the mortgage rates actually went up at first because there was so much demand for refinance with these low rates, but now they're settling down, are pretty much the lowest rates in the history of time. So remember, a 30-year loan, it never changes, but to get it at the lowest rates ever, that's even better. It means you'll have more left over with the gap between the rents and the mortgage payment. Now, think about that. The government just put out a stimulus of about $2 trillion. The government has and is injecting money into the financial system to the tune of $4 trillion to make the banking system going. And now the government is trying to pass in Congress, and hopefully it'll pass any day now. There's some bickering, but of another $2 trillion. So let's see, second grade math, maybe first grade. 2 + 4 + 2, $8 trillion. So you don't need to be an economist to know that if 8 trillion new dollars have been printed, when the crisis is over and things open up, we're going to have 8 trillion more dollars in circulation chasing the same number of goods. Any economist will tell you that will bring inflation. So when you get a 30-year fixed rate loan, as I said, inflation is your friend. Bring on, my friend. Also, the interest rates now are super low. When inflation hits, the interest rates will go up. Through my investing career, I've seen rates of 14% on mortgages, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And now, even for an investor, which is usually higher than a homeowner, just about 4. A homeowner is close to 3. So you get the mortgage at the lowest rate in history, and then seems like with all the stimulus printing trillions of dollars, inflation will follow. You will feel pretty much like a genius with a 30-year fixed rate at the lowest rate in history, never changing with inflation, while everything else does, including the number of dollars necessary to buy a house. So that's one thing to say. Now let's talk about the fear, but wait a second, if I have a rental home during the crisis, if my tenant lost their job, how are they going to be able to pay me and I can't even evict them and stuff like this? Absolutely true. A couple of points to say to that. Point number one, as you know, the government enhanced the unemployment benefit period and size. The size was enhanced by as much as $600 a week extra on top of the regular benefits. $600 a week is just about $2,500 a month extra. So most people in the middle income range are likely to be making as much as before they started getting the unemployment benefits, and in some ways slightly more even, because FICA is not going to be taken out of those while it was taken out of their paycheck. So that right there, many tenants, even the unemployed ones, as long as this great unemployment benefit is being paid, are likely to be able to make the rent payments. That is number one. Number two, when you're the owner and you have a mortgage, right away, most of the mortgages you get as investors, as new investors, are Fannie Mae loans. Those are the 30-year fixed rate loans. Well, Fannie Mae loans are government-involved loans, and already there's a forbearance. Forbearance, remember to look it up. If you don't remember, think about the little story with not with the 3 bears, but with the 4 bears. Forbearance. So now most of the banks now have a forbearance program where you can not make mortgage payments for 6 months, not get penalized from it. It's under the CARES Act, C-A-R-E-S. It's an acronym. The C stands for Corona. So under the CARES Act, you can get a forbearance. Ask your lender, ask your servicer. And some lenders have put it on the website so you can easily click and get it. For 6 months, you don't make the mortgage payment, your credit does not get hit, because the CARES Act also changed the Credit Act to reflect that. No late fees, nothing of the sort. The money that you didn't pay, you still will owe, and every bank will have a different way for you to pay it. The worst is if they ask you to pay it right when things clear up in a lump sum. But now more and more the direction seems to be very benevolent for some banks. You should find out with your bank. They tack it on to the end of the loan, and you only pay it decades down the road when the loan is paid off, or if you sell the home. That translates to an interest-free loan for decades, which keeps getting eroded by inflation. That's not so bad. So, and now they're talking about extending the forbearance period by another 6 months, starting in January. So, you know, they are taking care of people from both ends. And I believe the government has never really worked so hard, both on a state level and on a federal level, at giving programs and benefits. I believe that now is just as good a time as any, but if you feel like you want to wait a few months, doesn't matter. What I'm talking about changes your life, not over the short term, but over the long term. So, I mean, that is an important point to see. If you want to know more about it, by all means, I am delighted to talk about it. Created another PBS special before Life 201 called Remote Control Retirement Riches. And anybody who wants to watch that show, I swear I made it fun, even funny. All you need to do is send us an email and I'll send you a link to the show and you can watch it. So those are the thoughts I wanted to share with you now. Of course, there's a great deal more to share. You can read my book, which you can get on Amazon, all kinds of things. But just to give you a seed, a germ of an idea about something that I've seen change thousands of lives.